This is a 2016 Equinox. I think it's a 2.4. Got a fuel smell inside the vehicle. And after I show this, you're probably going to understand why. This is a direct injection vehicle, so let's see if we can do this without my fingers getting in the way. Completely loaded with either fuel or oil. So we're going to take the intake off of it and find out what exactly is going on here. I've taken the throttle body off. There's 4 10mm bolts. Of course, there's the cover that goes over the top of it, which sits there. Got a flathead or 5/16 or an 8mm on both ends of this. That just pops right off after taking the cap off anyways. Got a quick connect hose here. Quick connect hose there. Plug in here that is, I think that one went here. Yeah. This one goes there. That's a map sensor. And you got the locked in fuel pressure regulator for the high pressure fuel pump. Wiring harness that runs across the back side of the throttle body connects here with quick connect clips like Dodge uses. Just move those out of the way. You're going to have to take the fuel line off, and they recommend you change the fuel line that is down here anytime you take it off. That is proven hard to find, but I did get one through Chevrolet. I've got a fuel rail and fuel injectors here. So whenever all of this is out of the way, you want to get this cover here off. That way you can see off inside of here. This one bolt is already loose, so it either somebody taking it off once already, or it vibrated itself loose. Those look to be 12mm or 13s. I'll try to do this one-handed, just so I can try to record some. Got to be extremely careful with this thing. It likes to fall off. And of course that's a 10mm, so you know it's going to get lost to the abyss. I put every bolt taken off up here on the top. Some of the tools I put up there as well, that way I can find them when I need them. You're going to want a pair of pliers or hose clamp pliers to be able to take your main hose off for your vacuum. 10mm, probably a gear wrench or something to be able to take the bracket off for the hose. This, like I said, this panel needs to come off, so this bracket is on the front side of that panel. I'm gonna go grab a 10 wrench. Alright, for sake of fighting with the camera, I went ahead and did some of this off camera. I got the wiring harness off of the dipstick tube. I wiggled the dipstick tube side to side, pulled it out, get it out of the way. I may end up replacing that O-ring before I'm done. Now that should give us clear access to the bottom side of the intake. Feel the bottom side of it. I don't know if there's anything connected to it. I'm sure there is. I've not gotten up under it to be able to see if there's anything under there. Let's see if we can go ahead and get this. It'll probably be easier to get this line here out of the way for the high pressure fuel pump, but we'll try to worm it around it first. Alright, so if I'm not mistaken, this is the only bolt that hold the top side and potentially even the bottom side. Looks like the high pressure fuel pump is going to have to come out of there too. Either that or there's just a bracket beside it that holds it on under there. So I'm going to grab the socket to be able to take this off. Remember the bolt that I'd mentioned that was loose? Yeah, I didn't do that. Somebody had already taken this off once before. Some of the grommets and push clips and all are gone. That doesn't look to be a factory bolt or a sleeve. That bolt's loose. Yeah, I'm gonna go get a socket. Alright, so I've got a 1/2 inch socket, but I think it's supposed to be a 13 millimeter. And I'm pretty sure the socket is supposed to have been a 1/2 inch, but it's stretched out. And now it's gone. Got it. An extension here. Make it a little easier to hold on to the socket. That wasn't very tight either. That was completely loose. I hadn't even touched it with a socket yet. That was the nut that I'm referring to. If you couldn't see that, I'm pretty sure you can't. Whoop. This one's going to be a little tricky to get to. Alright, time to find a ratchet. Alright, so this one bolt was the only bolt that was extremely tight on there. Which is sad because all of the rest of them were extremely loose. I mean, it's not really sad, it's foolish because whoever put it on before obviously didn't torque it down. Bolt felt like it was a little cross-threaded. Alright, so I do have one more bolt, or a nut, stud potentially, and that's a 10. Let's back off over here onto the bottom side of this high pressure fuel pump. two bolts on the opposite side of the high pressure fuel pump that have to come off as well. They cover the high pressure fuel pump, so if you're wondering which bolts I'm referring to, those are them. Set them away from the other bolts just so you don't put them in the wrong spot, which I highly doubt that's going to happen because one is a M8 bolt and the other one is a M6 bolt. I'll bring the camera over in just a second to show this. Alright, so the one nut is under there. The two studs, you got one there and one there. And that uncovers the high pressure fuel pump. I have to pop that out of there. Dun, dun, dun. That's not the thing that we're worried about though. We have to take that stud out down there to be able to get the intake off of there. And we're going to be switching back to our previous size. Get the gun on down in here. Now I'm probably going to have to take the fuel lines off and the high pressure fuel pump just to be able to give myself a little bit more wiggle room. I would rather change all of this stuff out than to re-bleed the cooling system. If you don't get it right, it'll overheat. Yeah, see, either that or the stud's got to come out. So let's see if I can grab the stud with a pair of vice grips just so I don't have to go hunt for another tool. No, I have to do this in just a few minutes. Alright, so off camera I've gotten the fuel line off, the high pressure line. I got the bolt out down there. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be taking the high pressure pump off or not, but I've disconnected this fuel line. This one I unbolted, although I have taken the bracket off that clips onto here. It's there. This can now be moved out of the way. There's barely any fuel pressure there, which is uncommon. I may very well have to take the pump off, but if I can get this out of there and drop down without having to do that, then that would be great, because I did not get a seal for that, although they're not very expensive. So I still have to get, this looks like maybe a 6 or a 5.5. It's not an inverted Torx. I got an inverted Torx that would fit, kind of. If it's not super tight, then it'll come out. It was easier finding these than it was to go finding the small sockets. It's an E8 that I used. It is slightly large. If these were put in properly, an E8 would not work. Alright, now use. I have full access to my fuel rail. I need to get a vacuum to be able to clean off all of this nastiness. And get this intake out of the hole. I had to look underneath before I go to pulling on it, just in case there's wires connected. But these are 13 millimeters. This is the fuel rail for this. Still trying to determine where the fuel is seeping in at, because the fuel rail directly injects into the cylinders and doesn't directly inject into the intake. Although it's still likely that it could be going into the cylinder and then pushing out on the exhaust stroke, or I don't really know. All I know is it smells like there's a major gas leak, and there's not one visible. There's no fuel pressure, and the battery's still connected. The fuel pump's still connected, but there's no fuel pressure up here, and there should be constant fuel pressure.